Welcome to Ultimate Life Now with Dr. Alan Pickering.
Welcome to Ultimate Life Now. I'm Dr. Alan Pickering, your host for this show. We're going to be talking about assertiveness, which is a very, very important interpersonal relationship skill that I think most people don't understand a lot about. And we're going to unpack that. And I'm happy to have in the studio on our show today, Dr. Phillip Shero. He is the president of MasterMinds Leadership. It's a cutting-edge executive coaching, team development, and strategy planning consultancy in Fort Worth. He holds a Ph.D. in organizational leadership from Regent University, a master's from TCU, and a bachelor's from Harding University. Phillip, welcome to our program.
Thank you, Alan. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, very good. Tell the audience how you and I connected.
So I've spent so much of my life investing in personal development, in myself and in others. And I recognized that something in my own life was just off. So I reached out to a friend, another leadership consultant, and I said, I need a personal resource. I need somebody really trustworthy. And yours was the only name she suggested. So I reached out and we got in touch.
Yeah, and that's how we connected. And okay, so then I did some testing, right?
Yes.
And tell us what the testing revealed. And that's what got us into this subject matter that we spent weeks upon. Yeah.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is when I came to you, I wasn't quite sure what was wrong. So many things in my life seemed to be going well, but I wasn't fully enjoying those things. I wasn't enjoying the success that was around me, and I couldn't figure it out.
Right.
And you did an assessment, and one of those traits on the assessment was assertiveness, and it stunned me that my score was in the basement.
Right.
I did not think that that was true about me, but there it was right there on paper.
The same thing happened to me, Phillip. I was tested out. I was in the basement too on assertiveness. I couldn't believe it. I thought, no, surely not me. Right.
Yeah. I'd even had my coaching clients say, oh, you tell it straight. You tell it like it is. And I thought, oh, I'm an assertive person. But it turned out that in my own life, in meeting my own needs, taking care of myself, I wasn't. And that was a shock to discover. But wow, what a blessing to find that out and then be able to work on it. And I know we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, and then when we started unpacking it, boy, there were so many details to this interpersonal relationship skill of assertiveness. Now, I want to explain to the audience a little bit about the delineation of assertiveness. Most people are confused about the subject of assertiveness. A lot of people think that assertiveness is meanness, but assertiveness is not meanness. It's the real person showing up. It's being who you're supposed to be. But we have options in our relationships with people. We can either be passive compliant, and this diagram shows that we can be passive compliant or passive aggressive, which are very ineffective, or we can be aggressive, which is also ineffective. But there's another option, and that's assertiveness. And assertiveness allows us to be superbly effective in interpersonal relationships. And so that's what we're going to unpack today. And so, Phillip, let me ask you, as we were going into this subject of assertiveness, what surprised you the most about the whole behavior of assertiveness? What surprised you as we unpack this?
Well, I've always kind of prided myself on being tactful. Being able to tell somebody anything as long as I did it in a tactful way. But when I saw your definition of assertiveness, I realized that there was some passivity that I was calling tact.
Right. That's right.
I think one of the opening chapters of your book, there was a quote that just kind of hit me right between the eyes that said, I'm surprised what people are willing to do because they're afraid of being rude.
Yeah.
And I always thought, well, you need to speak well and be nice and don't be rude. And I realized that it was actually on the passive side, trying to avoid the aggressive, ending up on the passive and missing the middle, which was assertive.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, I know in a lot of my experiences, and this was a challenge for me as I was, developing myself, and I didn't want to appear rude, or I didn't want to appear mean, and so I would step back from assertiveness, and I always felt bad about it. I always felt bad, and I felt like I was kind of selling my soul a lot of times, So we laid out a lot of different techniques or approaches to being assertive. Tell me, what out of all the approaches, what were some that struck you the most?
So I think the most helpful to me was the neurolinguistics,
Yes.
reprogramming the brain, and you can explain it better, but driving those new thought processes deeply inside. I ended up writing out all these 3x5 cards with statements that you had suggested that resonated with me. I put them all over my bathroom mirror, read them constantly, began to reprogram my thoughts. And I even found that they would spontaneously come out. I would share them with people who were like, wow, that's great. I need to write that down. I had other people writing down those statements because they were so true.
Right.
That was really, really helpful to me.
Well, yes. The Bible says we're transformed by the renewing of our mind, and it's neuroscience that's helped us to really understand how this actually happens within the brain. But we have cognitive constructs by which we function by, and if in our brain we think unassertively, we've had unassertive experiences, we have beliefs about unassertiveness, and so we develop a whole construct around being unassertive. But what we have to do is we have to deliberately build in our brain a whole new construct on assertiveness, and that takes a lot of effort. It takes work to you have to do the cognitive work. One things you mentioned here is the use of neurolinguistics, or even scriptures, which are also considered neurolinguistics, where you actually try to integrate those onto a brain cell. And the average length of time to change a construct with daily effort is about 120 days. And I think when you hit about the 120-day mark, you were starting to change, and you had some experiences. Can you give us some of those experiences that you had? And it was like a yes, kind of experience. Can you share that with us a little bit?
Yes. So one that had just been frustrating me for a while is when I talked to somebody who was interested in doing some work with me, and then try to schedule with them, and it would get postponed or canceled, and I felt like I was chasing them down, like I was pursuing them. And then one of those neurolinguistic statements said, I will not make someone else a priority who makes me an option.
I knew you were going to say that one. That's a very good one, but yes.
I mean, it crystallized that thought for me, and I thought, this is for their benefit. Why am I pursuing them?
Right.
If this is an option to them, if it's a priority to them, then I can also make it a priority. And I realized I was spending a lot of calories on that, and it was dragging me down. While there were other people that it was a priority, I needed to be focused on them, not on those that were making this an option. So that was one that was pretty dramatic. Another is, other people in the audience may relate to this if they've had to negotiate for something, if they're buying or selling something. And I always felt like I was too nice and came out on the short end of negotiation. I had a very significant negotiation that I needed to complete during the time that you and I were working together. And that assertiveness worked. I was able to hold my ground. I wasn't rude. I wasn't mean. I was just clear and firm. And to my surprise, the other party understood, accepted, and we came to a very satisfying conclusion with that. That wouldn't have happened before. I would have given in too easily.
Yeah. The real Phillip showed up.
Yes.
The Phillip who had his perspectives, his ideas, who wanted what he wanted in terms of being able to help this person. The real Phillip showed up, and the real Phillip was effective because you were being assertive. So there were other techniques in the book that I go into. Like the idea of capturing the moral spiritual high ground. So and Jesus did this. He captured the moral spiritual high ground. And he was impeccably assertive, and thus, for many other reasons, plus with assertiveness, he was very effective. But it's amazing when you see his encounters with people, how effective he was. But he almost always captured a moral spiritual high ground, and from that moral spiritual high ground, he was able to be assertive and able to really alter people's lives. And so this idea of moral, spiritual high ground is something we have to go to. Have you found yourself trying to find that moral, spiritual high ground from which you could be assertive?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought up the Gospels and the example of Jesus, because I normally thought of Jesus as humble. And of course he was.
Yeah.
But he was also firm and clear and assertive. And after we talked about that, I started seeing it pop up everywhere as I was reading through the Gospels.
That's amazing. It's like your eyes open wide.
It was all
open.
over the place.
Wow. And by the way, humility actually is a way to be assertive, and it's a very effective way as it kind of coalesces with this idea of assertiveness. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I think for me, what's helped is recognizing that assertiveness can help make things right. That there are a lot of things in the world that are not right, that need to be corrected. And our society shies away from criticism or any sense of judgment, those kinds of things. So we almost back away from the concept of right, but we really need it now more than ever. I needed it.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's helped me to think in terms of what's actually right here, what's right for me, what's right for the other person. And if I'm convinced of that, then be firm and clear, be assertive about it. Don't back off just so you don't hurt someone's feelings.
The culture surely is needing a strong moral, spiritual voice, and that is effective in helping people on the journey of life. So let me bring up one more tool or strategy in being assertive. It's the idea of concepts, that concepts affect chemistry. And if we have the right concept in our mind, that affects our chemistry with people. And there are certain concepts that if we build these into our thinking, they kind of grease the skids to be assertive with people. They help us to be assertive with people. For instance, if you are a servant to people, or you are a lover of people, or you are an enjoyer of people, or you are a truth teller of people, or an encourager of people. These are concepts that if we integrate into our thinking, they help, again, grid the skids into being assertive with people. It's easier to be assertive with people if you're their servant and you're trying to help them on a journey of life. And as that concept is really firm in your thinking, it's amazing how you're able to affect people in an assertive way through the concepts that affect the chemistry. Have you noticed that in your own dealings with people?
There were several of those concepts, Dr. Pickering, that really hit home to me. And I would say, probably the strongest was truth teller.
Yeah.
I've always thought of myself as a truthful person, a person of honesty and integrity. But I realized through digging into what assertiveness is that I wasn't always telling the truth about what I saw, what I felt, what I needed, my perspective. I would let other people's perspective carry more weight. And so I wasn't telling the truth from my perspective. That really surprised me to discover that, because I thought, well, I never tell a lie. I'm always going to tell it like it is.
Right.
And yet, digging into this, that concept of being a truth teller,
yes,
was really powerful for me. That one especially, and then also the concept of being an enjoyer of people, really enjoying everybody. That struck me quite a bit, because I think of myself, the servant to people was a concept I think I already had. I wanted to serve other people, but to be able to enjoy them in the process, that was really rich.
Yeah, very, very good, Philip. One more thing I want to bring up regarding assertiveness, and that is the idea of security. Security is ground zero for assertiveness. That if we are not secure, it's going to be very, very difficult to be assertive. And I think this was my problem for a long time, Philip. I just didn't feel secure in my own skin. And but once I discovered these paths to being secure, that was allowed me then to really start homing down and mastering this interpersonal relationship skill of assertiveness with people, because I felt the confidence in being who I was made to be, security. So there are 3 paths that we mentioned. And there's a whole chapter that's in the book, the idea of how do we become secure. One is we have to eliminate the critical voice, because the critical voice will keep wrecking us. The second is we can't compare ourselves to other people. That is toxic to our soul. We can assess people, but we must not compare ourselves to people. And then the third is being caught up in the stunning theological reality of our own being. And so those are the 3 paths to security. Talk to me about you and security, and we spent some time on that. I remember in our sessions together. But let's talk about that for just a few moments here.
We did talk about it a good bit, and those were powerful conversations. And I think maybe now is a good time to say some of these concepts it's difficult to learn on your own. Having someone else as a guide to walk with you. I know that's what I do in coaching leaders. That's something that you did for me. Because we may think, I've got this down, but that external perspective can help us see ourselves, and you helped me see myself more clearly. I've taught about the importance of security in leadership for years. I think it's leaders who lack security can become very toxic.
That's right.
But even though I teach that to others, reflecting on myself is difficult, and if other people are like me, it can be hard to admit that there's an issue with security. I mean, that's a very vulnerable thing
very much
to share. So having, the confidentiality and the ability to work one-on-one was very valuable to me. That I also think that security can fluctuate over time because there are events that can happen to us.
Your world can get rocked.
And I've gone through that, and people that know me, I've shared my story with them. Had some life-altering traumas, crises, setbacks, and my security took a hit. I mean, it really did, and
it was hard to be assertive in your insecurity.
Yes,
but you recovered, and you became superbly secure in your own being, and then were able to really affect others once you mastered, once you kind of caught your breath again.
Yes.
So this is marvelous, Philip. This is absolutely marvelous. Well, I'll tell you, Philip, it's been great having you with us here today. And any closing comments before we wrap it up here?
I'm just so grateful for you, for your teaching, for the book, for our work together on this critical concept of assertiveness. I think there's a lot of self-help advice out there of try this or do that, but if you don't get at the root issues underneath, you can spin your wheels. And this has been so valuable for me. I've been helping some of my CEO and leadership clients in this same topic, this same concept. So I'm really grateful for your work.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Phillip Shero. All right. I want to remind our audience that I will be doing a seminar on assertiveness Saturday, January the 25th from 5 to 8 p.m. It's going to be at the Trademark Church in Fort Worth. The cost is $30, and with that, you get the seminar and the book. Not a bad deal. You can go to my website, www.ultimatelifenow.org, to learn a little bit more about that, to order the book, or you can go to Facebook, my Facebook page, Dr. Alan Pickering, to sign up for the seminar, or you can just show up at the door and register for the seminar. I want to thank you for spending time with us here. God continue to bless your life as you continue this journey He has you on. Thank you.